Here is the one and only Errol Collins. Errol, you know what you need to do. She's all yours for the next 20.
And you know, Michael, this is the one and only Janice who won that Gracie Award. Come on now. She needs to get credit for that.
That's right. That is very right. Janice, the great Gracie.
Good
morning.
Good morning. Congratulations on that award. I've worked with two others that have won the Gracie Award, and it's an amazing place to be. And I love the pride when you put your hand on that trophy and you get to take it home. It's yours. You get to say it's mine.
Definitely.
And it serves as inspiration to do something like what you're doing right now with Party Cruise. And what I love about this, I know it's about the LA scene, but don't you agree that every town has their own party crew and we go through stories? Because I could so relate with your journey.
Yeah, definitely. I think it is relatable from city to city, and like in various cultures. I feel like everyone has like some kind of youth, right? Some kind of youth group or some kind of like subculture they were part of when they were young, and they did all the wild things together also. So I think, I definitely think it's relatable, like across the country, like, everywhere really.
And it was always a great time until somebody from a different side of town came to the party. They got word of where we were going to be hanging out. And us, it was always the north side of Billings. It was like, oh hell, we're in trouble. We're done.
Yeah. Yeah. What kind of music? What kind of music did you guys listen to? What kind of?
Out there in Montana, we were doing some Bob Seger. We were doing classic rock before it became classic rock. And so we had to have it loud, and we were keg diving before that even became cool.
How did you guys get the kegs?
Let me tell you, I've always said that being out in Montana, what would happen is that the beer is so bad out there, they were just giving it away. The kids want it, give it to them. We'll try to make more.
Yeah. They're like, we need to get it off our shelves.
That's right. And other than that, I don't know how we got it. I really don't, because I look at kids today go, no, you are not going to do what I did. Don't do it.
Yeah. I feel like parents who are my age are like the same way. They're just like, no, I'm gonna keep more tabs on where my kids are. No, but I mean, it's different. It's a different world. It was less connected, right? We're in the digital age, and everything is just on the internet. Everything's so easy to find now.
What was it like for you to step back into that zone where you guys used to release and have a great time? Because as an adult, your journey is still evolving, but you're more complete.
Yeah. It was really interesting because I kind of went back and looked at this time, right? This like party time from when I was a teen, but I started kind of during 2021. So it was still like we were barely starting to go out again, like kind of really being comfortable with that. So I kind of was looking at this, at a time where I was at home, not really doing much, not seeing my friends for months. And yeah, I mean, it was hard because I just like kind of, I don't know. I guess I just never really had thought about my teen years in a really long time, for various reasons, one being that a friend of mine was killed in the party scene when I was around 21. So I kind of just moved on, and I was like hurt by that. And I hadn't looked back in a long time. But yeah, no, I think it was very healing for me, and I think I was old enough now, and it was like 20 years ago for me, that I felt okay to look back. And I think, I've like, I don't know, I think I was okay. And I think it would have, if I would have done this like 5 years ago, maybe it wouldn't, I don't think I would have been ready. I just think it wasn't too fresh because it's still 15 years later, but it's just, I don't know. I just felt, I don't know. I was, I felt really, I felt a lot better looking back, and, and I think like I was able to look back and not see the negative. I was able to see like some of the positives, and I think that helped me a lot.
Yeah. Okay. You've been reading my notes, because that's one of the things I was going to talk to you about. I said that that the party cruise changed a lot of teens, but as a journalist now, not as the outside looking in, as a journalist, what was positive about it?
Yeah. So for me, I kind of see it as, a lot of young entrepreneurs. I think like the party cruise scene, because these party crews, and that's like cruise spelled CREWS. A lot of these crews were teens, and they were throwing parties, and they were charging. And, I think, in the series, I kind of go into like what makes the party legal with a police that I interview, but a captain that I interview. But yeah, so like, you know, they were charging and like, you know, there's various ways to make money within that. So for me, it was like, you know, we were kind of just making do with what we had, you know, in spaces that we could get in. You know, usually you'd pay like the owner of the house a couple hundred, and then you get to like rent out the backyard for like the night. And then, you know, it's kind of like that. You like kind of like everyone kind of just like makes a little bit of profit. And for me, like that was how a lot of like event organizers started, you know, and a lot of like club promoters and people who ended up like having really successful nightlife careers. And I think they all like kind of just learned how to do that, you know, in the scene. And I guess like for me, I didn't throw parties, but I think I just found a space where I was able to let loose, like really let loose, because I wasn't able to do that at home or at school dances. You know, it was kind of like it's like a different space. So those are the positive things.
You're right about those entrepreneurs, because I'll tell you what, I got the partying out of me before I got into my grown-up shoes after high school. It was like, okay, I don't need this anymore. It's time to put focus on success. But you're absolutely right about that, because, you know, what we did in order to get into these parties, we created a band. Now we had to run the band like a business because we needed to get into these parties.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think, you know, those are just things you learn on the go, right? I think those are things that are hard to learn in school. That's like kind of what you learn when you're, you know, in, I don't want to say in the streets, but like in the streets, you know, like you just learn it outside in the real world. Yeah.
I got a question for you. How many people have come up to you that are younger in the way that, because I mean, I know for a fact that you snuck out of that house, and that becomes an art itself. But the younger generation tends to come up to me and say, how did you get out? But what I try to do is I try to explain to him, there are, you know, things you should not do if you sneak out of the house. And one of them was I fell off the clothesline and fell 6 feet and hit my back because that was my way out of the house. What did you learn from sneaking out of the house? You're going to go, don't do it. It's not a good place.
So you know, I grew up in LA, and it's, you know, we have like, well, I mean, there's 2-story houses, but there's also like, you know, we lived in a 1-story, and my bedroom was right next to my parents. Well, my dad was a heavy sleeper, right? And he didn't work on the weekends because he used to work nights during the weekdays. But on the weekends, he would be home, and he was such a loud snorer that I think because of that snoring, because it was so loud, my mom, who really has like sonic ears, she hears everything. You know, I was able to really, like, I would just make sure he's sleeping so his snoring can really cover up my like sneaking out. Like, so I would like close, like, you know, open the door really slowly and then tiptoe with bare feet just to kind of escape. And then, you know, I would kind of time his snoring, and then I would like kind of open the back door, you know, and I would like still like sneak out. And I sometimes would, you know, I would borrow the car. And I'm kind of shocked how no one heard the engine. Like I don't know. I was, you know, I was like 16, and I was like, all right, let's go. Like no one got out. Like, and yeah, I mean, I just remember one. No, actually, I don't think I ever really got caught. Now that I remember. Yeah, my mom says she remembers once, but I don't think so. I'm like, all right, I'll let you think that.
Yeah, you come home red-eyed, and Mom would always say, what's wrong with your eyes? Mom, it's my contacts. If you don't get me a doctor's appointment real soon, there's just something wrong with my contacts.
I know. I was like, I wish I could wear sunglasses, because I would actually be dragged to church the next morning, right? So it's like Sunday morning, 8 a.m. And I'm like, oh, like just like at church, like dying. Like, I'm so tired.
You talked about losing your friend, Emmery. And it's one of those where I think where I was pulled deeper into the podcast Party Cruise is that if we're being truthful and honest with ourselves in this authentic world, we all have lost friends due to situations that we could have controlled, but we did not. And I think that because Emmery reminds me of friends that I've lost. And so that's how I'm following your podcast, because I want to know how you're reacting in adult shoes.
Yeah. So actually, like, you know, Emmery, I didn't know Emmery when I was in the scene. And the friend that I lost, his name was Hector.
Oh.
And yeah, he was someone who was in the scene with me when I was in it in high school. And then, you know, I went to college and I got older, and like we all did, you know, but he stayed. He would go to parties and stuff. And I was just like, really personally affected by it, that I kind of just didn't want to hear about the scene anymore. But when I found out about Emmery's case in 2020, I think for me, I was pulled back, and I think it was because, she was a girl like me, at that time, like a teen girl. And I remember all the things I was looking for, right? I was looking for freedom. I was looking for just like-minded people. I think of those things. And sometimes I'm just like, when I started looking into her story, and I'm like, maybe this is all Emmery wanted too. And, something tragic happened to her. And yeah, like you said, I see a lot of I see Emmery in a lot of my friends, and I think that's something that came to mind when I first heard her case, specifically Emmery's case. And because of the way she was spoken or written about or reported on was really tied to the scene. And I just wanted to understand, why is she so tied to the scene, and it's making it look so negative. And I just didn't I knew what the dangers were, right? I knew that it wasn't perfect, but I was just like, why, would they, if I was killed, would they talk about me in this way too? I think I had all those questions going into it. And I think that's what really why I wanted to look into her case. I really wanted to share her story in a different light. Those things were important to me when I heard about her.
But you know what's scary, Janice? It's when people stop talking about you. That to me is scary. And the fact that you're talking about Emmery, and the thing about it is that the media, and until I became a broadcaster, I had no idea what clickbait was. I had no idea how much that they want to have that negative news, and they're going to find those little things. So to bring out Emmery's story today, take it off the front page and tell us the real story. Now we've got a journey that we can grow from.
I 100% agree. I think, I think that's the benefit, and I think a lot about my friends, in media, and you're in media. So it's all, we all have different ways to tell a story. Right. And a lot of my friends who do work in different outlets, they work in news, and maybe it's a lot smaller stories. And I think I really just got lucky that I was able to explore this in 8 episodes, and really dive in and kind of, write this out. It's very narrative. And I feel that's why we have, media that's like this, that's why we have documentaries, because we really can dive in as opposed to it being a 2-minute story. And I think that's something that I love about what I do. I love diving in. I love kind of exploring. I love thinking through, and I like the listener to do it with me.
So true. So true. That's, if I didn't have that ability to go in there and do research, I think I'd go totally insane, because it's fun that when you find that lifeline and you go, oh, I'm feeding off this, I'm going to go in there, I'm going to dig deeper. And it's almost like you have to ask the questions, then question the answers. And you do that brilliantly.
Thank you. Thank you. And I think, I had a really great team around me. I actually worked with 2 people, Antonia Cerejido as an editor, and Sofia Palisacar, who I worked with at Latina USA, my previous job before Vice. And I just felt really comfortable with their edits. And I think, for me, it was really important to work with people I had worked with in the past. And it just happened, the collaboration with LAist Studios just happened to work out that way. And I feel really grateful because I was able to, really gonna kind of get into a vulnerable place, and they were very respectful. And I think I just felt really safe with them to explore. And now, it's out in the world, and I'm like, but, I was able to be vulnerable and get edited. And I think that's always been hard for me. I'm usually a reporter, and I don't know, I sometimes write stories where I'm in it, but I think this one was a little different because it's so personal at the same time as I'm reporting on this culture that I was a part of, subculture that I was a part of. But yeah.
Okay, from one editor to another, and hopefully listeners will tap into this, because so many people do tap into the podcasting shows, and that is that do you have to allow yourself to ferment the story of the sounds that you collected so that you can disconnect from it because it is so personal? And then when you go in there as the editor, you're going in there thinking like a listener. Yeah,
I think I I think I just had the story in my head and I was like, how is it going to come out? And then I kind of map it out for my, the team. I map it out for the editor and senior producer. And then we work together with all the interviews we have. And sometimes, the reporting just keeps going as we're writing. And sometimes we get new interviews and then we have to restructure things. But yeah, I think when we listen, when we edit, because we do a lot of group edits, I write it, we construct it on Pro Tools, it's ready to be listened to, and then we hear it. And I think that's when we get to listen to it as a listener and say this part's too long, cut, this part isn't working, I need to explain this more. And I think, I'm glad we get to do that because, when you're in it and it's a script, you kind of don't hear it because it's a podcast, right? And I think once it's brought to life, you're just I guess a movie editor or any kind of visual, right, editor or any kind of list editor that isn't I guess you could do that with an article too. But yeah, it's just a lot of editing, right? It's a lot of taking out and you're okay, take myself out of it now. Let me make sure that the person can follow along because I know what's going on, but I need to make sure everyone else does.
You made the radio guy in me giggle a little bit when you said Pro Tools because Pro Tools never came to radio. It's
really?
No. Look, I just need to get in there, drop my tracks, and get out. All right. And so so when you said Pro Tools, I'm going, she came from a different side of the journalistic world.
I know the elders. The people who were in audio and podcasting, well, not podcasting, but narrative audio before me used to cut tape with razor or something.
Me.
Yeah,
That's
me. It was a big thing. Yeah, I always heard about cutting tape, and I'm like, wow, you guys made stories of cutting tape that way. I was amazed. We have it easy now. I mean, Pro Tools is we just find the timestamp and cut.
That's it.
Yeah.
So when you guys were accused of being a gang, I know that when all of a sudden we were labeled South Side, that really offended me because all of a sudden it's I'm not one of them. I don't want to be one of them. I'm not the South Side. What did you go through?
Yeah. So, I hadn't really, when I was a teen, I hadn't really thought about that. I wasn't following the news, to be honest. I was doing my own thing. I was 16 and looking back now at all the, footage now. And then, thankfully, we were able to access a UCLA archive and, they let us use some of their audio that they have in their archive, which, it was so hard to find. The things from 2004 aren't really digitized and put on YouTube. We were able to find one news story on Emmery, but there were multiple. And, thanks to them, we were really able to just use a lot of news from that time. So I started to learn that, police were labeling them as gangs. Police were kind of they weren't saying it. It was really hard for me because I started to pick up on that and I didn't find any proof. Couldn't find documents where they would write gangs or anything like that. I know the gang unit was involved, but I couldn't find anything like that. And then I finally heard an LAPD, I don't know if it was officer or captain, say party crews are Hispanic turf gangs. And I was I knew I kind of thought that it picked up in all the word choices, right? All the tactics. And I think for me, I was really I wasn't surprised, but I was just wow, this is something that I don't know. You're just so in your own bubble when you're young and you don't know how the world's looking at you. And I think learning that for me, I'm just okay, you guys, I mean, like I said, it wasn't perfect. It wasn't a perfect scene. There was violence. But it isn't it isn't a gang by nature. Right. It isn't a I don't want to say traditional gang, but it isn't that. And it was adjacent. I think people especially guys maybe would kind of find a home within party crews. And these were neighborhoods where they were trying to get recruited for gangs, and they did find some kind of family with the party crews and were able to maybe not go that route. But then they're being labeled gangs anyway. So I think that was kind of the hard thing for, just the kids who were in the scene and people who look back now.
Wow, you've got to come back to this show anytime in the future. I love your your storytelling ability and capability, and you just know how to bring it forward. That's that Gracie speaking, isn't it?
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Well,
I'm glad.
You be brilliant today, okay?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Hey, Arrow.
Yes.
How many wax pencils did you go through while doing the splicing of the tapes?
Oh my God! It was we went through them.
Wax pencils?
Yeah, if you could find them. If you could find them. More importantly, it was like if you did not remember to clean the heads, and that's such a radio term. Then all of a sudden you would get and you would have a whole entire project done.
So when I was in college, they were teaching us that. I didn't learn the digital aspect of it until I got into radio.
Wow.
That's the funny part. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's how I'm like, I used to have a wax pencil, and being from the Bronx, I always had to keep a switchblade around on me, so it was easy for me to just be like, all right, yeah, I'm good. We're good.
It's Thanks, so true. You guys have a brilliant day, okay?
Thank you. Have a great morning. Bye.